Hello, everyone. You can do it. You can do it. You can do it to your heart's desire. If you can do it in your imagination, then you can do it in real life. Hello, this is Robert Johnson speaking to you from Northern California. Hello, I'm glad to be here with all of you. This is actually my first time speaking not only during a Black History Month event, but also to a high school. Usually I speak in other areas, so I am very honored that one of your faculty members asked me to come and speak to you all. I have donated to your school before, probably a good 10, 15 years ago, to a group that wanted to go to DC. And that was when I served on one of the Smithsonian's boards, the Asian Pacific American Center board in Washington, D.C. So anyway, I'm originally a New Yorker, but an upstate New Yorker. So I know you guys give us from Albany a little hard time. But anyway, my family actually originates from the Mississippi, Alabama area. My maternal side went up the western side of the Mississippi River from Arkansas to Missouri, and then the other side landed in upstate New York during the Great Migration in the 1930s. So we're not immigrants, but we're part of that multi-million movement of the Black Americans that were in the old Confederate South. And then my mother migrated up to upstate New York to work at a place called Montgomery Ward in retail. Just to give you a little bit, my dad actually went to SUNY Albany to study chemistry and German, but he actually got out of college because he loved working with his hands. So he took what he learned in chemistry and German and got back into construction, which is what he loved. His father, which is my grandfather, was a machinist who worked at GE and worked on some top secret projects during World War II. And my grandfather's father was a woodsman, and his father was a blacksmith. So we've always worked with our hands and always been very active. We eventually migrated from upstate New York to Missouri because that's where my mother wanted us to be. She's a very quiet woman who, actually a good old Southern lady who put her foot down and said, you know what, I love New York, but I want to raise the kids in the Midwest. And she actually took us herself. And then my dad eventually came later on, but she took all 5 of us over there. And that was probably one of the best strategic decisions ever made. And the reason why I share that is all of our parents and our grandparents have moved to areas to improve our lifestyles and livelihoods. And that has made all the difference for so many people. So relating to myself, graduated back in the 80s, studied, went off to college. I found college by accident. I only went to college because my mother actually made me go to college. I wanted to work in construction with my dad, which I did. But I've always worked while I was I actually started working early on because I liked having my own money. So I've always shoveled snow and mowed the grass. And so, look, I was a mini little entrepreneur. I used to, when the bullies used to try and take my candy, I charged them. I'd be like, hey, you want to take my bubble gum? Here, buy it for a quarter. So anyway, always had an entrepreneur side. Ended up at Indiana University. Always be a good alumni of your high school and your college. And then graduated from there, was active in student government. We stand for students. I served as a vice president of the student body for Indiana University, representing 30,000 students. I studied economics and geography. I paid my way. I'd say I was probably a B- type of student in high school, but I was extraordinary in what I knew. I may not have always been the best across all the courses, but on the quantitative side, I was very strong. And on the written side, I was strong. And that's what got me into college because I loved to read. And you can see by some of the books behind me. You know what? From Indiana University, I tell you, in high school, I would recommend that you stay active and be involved. And I love my parents because though they wanted us all to have great grades, I was not the one that had the best grades out of all six of us. But my mom and dad used to say, and my grandparents used to say, as long as you master what you know, and you master what you know, and you're grounded in it, then we're proud of you. And so they always stress mastering what you know and solving something. And from all that, that took me off into college. And I got recruited by Procter and Gamble my senior year in college. I worked for Procter and Gamble. If you don't know Procter and Gamble, they make Tide, Downy, Febreze, and I worked for them for a couple of years. And then I was recruited by a company called Kraft Foods. And I worked for Kraft Foods for 25 years, 14 assignments, and about 4 or 5 times in corporate headquarters, crisscrossing the country. Sometimes you got to move and live where you never dreamed of. When I came out of college, my first assignment was back in the South, and my family was very concerned because they remember what happened to them when they lived in the South. But I ended up loving it. I was assigned and lived in Louisville, Kentucky, which was a perfect size city for me at the time when I was at Procter & Gamble. And then when Kraft recruited me, they sent me to Nashville, Tennessee. I loved Tennessee. No state income tax, loved it. That's purely great. And then lived in Ohio, but I've crisscrossed the whole country. My background, it ranges from sales to supply chain logistics, to market research, consumer insights, client cultivation, branding, you name it. I'll tell you, regardless of what you do, everybody has to solve something if you're going to be successful. And every company needs to get something, whether it is service or a product, from point A to point B. That's whether you work for the government, that's whether you're a teacher in academics or whatever. Everybody needs to move something from point A to point B. And if you're a part of that solve, and you're a critical part of that solve, you will always be employed. You may also always be able to create your own business and do quite well. So there's a lot, as long as you're a part of the solve, and along the way while you're working different jobs, you're present, there's amazing things that you can do. I worked at an animal clinic because at one time I wanted to be a veterinarian. I worked there for 2 years in high school. It was my first job. I still am in written communication with the person that I worked for, the Dr. Dunaway. I also worked in fast food. I was a fry cook at Arthur Treacher's, and a lot of people don't take their job serious. I took every job that I did very serious, and I worked as a grocery store bagger and stocker for 5 years during high school and college, and I wrestled. I went to state and wrestled while I was in high school. The reason why I share this to you is every job that we do connects. Every job that we do connects. When I was a cook, it was about delivery on time and making things right and profitability and everything like that real quick. So anyway, just be conscious about what you're doing and everything will work out for you, but just be conscious. And while you're doing things, people will find you as long as you're active. And just remember, everybody has 168. 168. There's 168 hours in a week, and we choose how we use those 168. And you'll be successful if you figure out how to manage your 168 hours a week. Thank you.